Hello, my name is Matthew, and I've been reading The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky, the new Michael Katz translation, which is just fantastic. And I was talking about this little episode that happened to me when um, a short story collection by Gogol is mentioned in the book, and how I wanted to read these Ukrainian tales. And I start looking for the book. I know exactly which edition I'm looking for, a little well proportioned light blue uh, collection of Gogol short stories. And I thought I knew exactly where it was, and it wasn't there. And this little psychodrama escalated throughout the night, me going through every shelf and ultimately just turning the whole house upside down to no result. I couldn't find the book. It was so perplexing, and I talked about it. And I had talked to Ben about this, and one of the obvious conclusions that someone might draw is, well, you probably lent the book out. And I thought, well, I don't. Basically a shut-in. Who on earth would I have lent the book out to? And the other day, my neighbor comes across the field. My neighbor also lives in a tiny house, which Ben also built. It's a really interesting um, scene going on over here. And he comes over with a little pile of books and something else. And I was, and he had the Gogol book, and I was thunderstruck. I had absolutely, completely forgotten. A couple months ago, I had to, on a business trip, I had to go to Atlanta, Georgia, and my neighbor was one of the people that took care of the cats, and he had been over here. Of course, his books, floor to ceiling, and I had lent him a handful of books along with this little book. And so that is the mystery of the missing book. But we had a great conversation talking about um, Gogol and then some of the other books that I had lent him. Uh, he held on to a few. He brought over Gogol and then The Death of Ivan Illich and other short stories, which has it's just a really fun quote on the back. It says, "No one pitied him as he would have liked to be pitied." Um, but we talked about Maupassant, the short stories, and I asked, "Did you read The Necklace?" And he said, "Yes." And we're talking about how great these short stories are, how um, efficient the characterization is, how quickly Maupassant can get to the point and draw these real characters. And of course, we talked about those extraordinary endings and how, for lack of a better term, how they can end on a twist and they become these page turners where you finish a story and it just has this great landing. He just nails the ending sometimes with a perfect word, and you just can't help go to the next Maupassant short story. And we were talking about how they're not necessarily twists. It's just something can be revealed, or more of the story comes out, or becomes weightier or fleshier. And we were talking about The Necklace, which, without getting into specifics, as far as spoiling the story, which I don't think you can, but you get to the very end of the short story, and there's this revelation just through a little dash of dialogue. We learn as the reader, oh, so they just ruined their entire lives. It just hits you. It's amazing, amazing. We talked about Virgil, the um, eclogues and Georgiacs, and um, how Virgil was this kind of Rome's state poet, and he was writing these um, agrarian poems of working the land and toiling and um, the satisfaction one can get from working with the ground and growing things yourselves. And at least from what I understand, at the time, uh, all of these Roman soldiers are coming back from their conquests, and they had been, in return, promised money or land. And now Rome is full of these Roman soldiers who are no longer at war, and they are just sitting on their properties. And this idea that the last thing that the Roman Senate wants, the Roman Emperor, is restless Roman soldiers. And so Virgil wrote these poems to sort of ease the minds of these soldiers who are no longer battling at war, but are going to be farmers. And so they're reading these poems about take pride in turning the manure and things like that, growing your vegetables. They were pillaging and plundering the week before, but now they're out there with a garden rake. And I'm also not the biggest fan of Virgil, at least in the translations that I have read. It always feels just a little wooden. For some reason the humanity doesn't come through for me, but that's okay. And then in the meantime, I have been reading a lot of Gogol short stories. I had also ordered this book by Penguin, which has some short stories and also The Government Inspector, that play. I was actually a little surprised or disappointed that I couldn't find, like from a major publication, just a big fat book that was the complete short stories by Gogol, or if not complete, just a very, very large selection. Oxford has one. The Pever Volonkonsky translation probably is the most robust, largest selection of Gogol short stories. There's this one, and then of course this nice little one too. But I just wish it was much, much longer. And I've been reading these kind of small town short stories, the Ukrainian tales before he got to St. Petersburg, and wrote the landmark short stories that find themselves in every single collection. The Nose, The Overcoat, Diary of a Madman. But the first two short stories, these are just the titles. Ivan Fyodorovich Shpanka and His Aunt. That's the first short story. The second one, How Ivan Ivanovich Quarreled with Ivan Nikiforovich. So the first two short stories, we have three characters all named Ivan. And in the third short story, there's Ivan Ivanovich, and then a second character who's also named Ivan Ivanovich, who's missing an eye. And man, these stories really hit me in the right spot. Just without beating you over the head with absurdity, something like missing your nose. They still have a strangeness to them. The first one, Ivan Fyodorovich Shpanka and His Aunt, begins with, behind this story there is another one. And so often in these short stories we find something else entirely going on. it's not just the story that's being told. There's another story behind it, and you might think you're going in one direction, and it goes in a completely different direction. Um, with the what is it called again? Uh, Ivan Fyodorovich Shpanka and his aunt, and we have this Ivan who um, goes to the military, finds out that his mother died, is coming back, and the aunt is, when they finally meet, the aunt is explaining that there's a piece of, there's property that this neighboring uh, landowner has that's actually his property, Ivan's property. And he has this contract that he's secretly hiding. He acquired it some mysterious way, and Ivan needs to go over and somehow try to get this contract back. And the aunt is instigating all of this. There's a fantastic introductory moment where the other landowner and Ivan meet, and he's this big, corpulent man, and the landowner is kissing Ivan on the cheeks, and Ivan starts kissing him back on the cheeks. It's the first time they've met, and unexpectedly, Ivan takes great pleasure in the sensation of kissing this man's cheeks. They're just so ruddy and jowly, and he just finds like these big soft pillows that he can kiss on, and it's very, very funny. But at the end of this, instead of getting the property back, the landowner has a daughter, and the aunt says, "Oh, well, maybe we can do it this way. You could marry the daughter." And the young man Ivan saying, "Get married? Like, but what shall I do? I've never been married before." And then he has this delirious fit where, what does he say? He starts like hallucinating, and wives start springing up all around him, and where is it? And there was a double instead of a single. His wife was sitting. His wife was sitting on the chair. He was completely at a loss to do. He panicked. He took off his hat, and there was a wife sitting in it. Beads of sweat trickled down his face. He felt in his pocket for his handkerchief and found another wife in it. And so these wives are springing up. And so it goes in a totally different direction. The next one, how Ivan Ivanovich quarreled with Ivan Nikiforovich, is equally crazy. Maybe I'll make another video about that, because I feel like I'm kind of rambling. But the point of all of this is that I got my little book back. And the neighbor also, I just want to show this. I thought that he would like the Virgil books because he's always out working the land and toiling and tilling and growing things. It's always interesting seeing what they're up to over there. But he brought me this. It looks like a magic potion. And it's red raspberry wine that he made himself. He collected the red raspberries that grow, the wild raspberries that grow along the hedgerows. And he made the wine and bottled it, got its own cork in there. He assured me it's not poison, so I'm very happy. It was a very, very generous gift, and I was grateful for that. So, some thoughts about some books, Gogol, short stories, and I got my book back. So, let me know if you have any thoughts. This feels kind of like a random video, but I thought an update was warranted. So, thank you for watching. Please leave a comment if you would like, and take care.